Here's the question for you. Can a shark attack change the course of history? It sounds ridiculous, right? Like the plot of a bad movie. But the answer is, weirdly enough, yes. And how it almost happened tells us something really unsettling about the way our democracies actually function.
So, to understand this, we've got to go back in time. The year is 1916. The place? The shores of New Jersey.
And look, this isn't just some strange historical anecdote. It's actually a perfect window into how unpredictable and, let's be honest, how irrational the forces that shape our world can be. So, picture this. It's the summer of 1916, and a series of shocking shark attacks hits the Jersey Shore. People are terrified. Naturally, tourism, the lifeblood of that whole area, completely collapses overnight. Fast forward to the presidential election that November. In those exact same coastal counties, voters turn on the incumbent, Woodrow Wilson. Now, this is a guy who used to be their super popular governor, but it didn't matter. They were hurting, their businesses were failing, and so they blamed the guy in charge. In the end, Wilson just barely scraped by to win the presidency. It was one of the closest elections in history. A few more shark attacks, a few thousand more votes flip, and American history could look completely different. Now, it's really easy to just write that off as a bizarre, one-time thing, a fluke, right? But what if that kind of emotional, knee-jerk voting isn't the exception? What if it's the rule? Well, political scientists Christopher Achin and Larry Bartels found something that suggests it is. In their book, Democracy for Realists, they uncovered this crazy pattern. For decades, if a state's local college football team lost a big game right before an election, the incumbent president would actually get fewer votes in that state. Take 2012, for example. Barack Obama's vote share in Louisiana actually took a noticeable dip right after a local team's loss. Just stop and think about that for a second. The collective bad mood from a football game can literally influence who runs the country. And you know what's wild? People were warning us about this exact problem over 2,000 years ago. The philosopher Plato made this analogy. He said democracy is like a ship where the crew gets to pick the captain. And who do they pick? Not the quiet, nerdy navigator who actually knows how to read the stars and currents. No way. They pick the loudest, most charismatic, most popular sailor. They choose charm over actual competence. So it's not just our fleeting emotions from things like shark attacks or football games that are guiding us. Our brains are basically wired to take shortcuts. And one of the most powerful shortcuts we use is our instant judgment of someone's face. A fascinating experiment from 2019 just laid this completely bare. So here's what the researchers did. They took photos of French politicians from an election that happened 7 years earlier. They showed these photos to a group of Swiss adults, people who had no clue who these candidates were, and simply asked, who looks more competent? Then they did the same thing with a group of little kids, but they framed it differently. They asked them to pick a captain for their ship in a video game.
The results were, well, they were just astonishing. The adults, based on nothing but a gut feeling from a photo, predicted the actual winner of the election 70% of the time. Pretty good, right? But the kids? The kids were 71% accurate. That's right. Children choosing a captain for a video game were slightly better at predicting a real election than adults were. It suggests that a lot of what we call political judgment is really just a first impression of a face.
So what is this look that we're all responding to? Well, studies have actually broken it down. It's a specific cocktail of visual cues. Things like an angular jawline, a direct, confident stare, even something as simple as good lighting in their official portrait. And funny enough, having average features that don't stand out too much helps too. We subconsciously read these traits as competence and leadership, whether there's any truth to it or not. Okay, so we vote based on random events, our mood after a sports game, and what a candidate's jawline looks like. But the problem gets even deeper, even more serious, when we look at what voters actually know. And this right here, might be the biggest flaw in the whole system. The 2016 Brexit referendum in the UK is a perfect real-world case study for this. I mean, this was a massively complex issue. It had huge economic and social consequences that would last for generations. So researchers decided to conduct a massive study to figure out one thing. How well did the people making this decision actually understand the facts? They surveyed 16,000 people, and the results were really telling. Let's break it down. Among voters who got the basic facts right and were confident they were right, only 20% voted to leave the EU. But now look at this second group. Voters who got the facts wrong but were still super confident they were right. In that group, 40%, twice as many, voted to leave. And that's what reveals the most dangerous threat to democracy. It isn't just ignorance. It's not just not knowing. It's the deadly combination of being misinformed, being completely overconfident about it, and then being totally resistant to any new information that might challenge what you think you know. This just begs a really simple question, right? I mean, we spend hours, sometimes days, researching a new phone or what car to buy. So why are we so casual when it comes to deciding the entire future of our country? Well, there's a simple idea that explains it perfectly. It's called diffusion of responsibility. Imagine this. A professor walks into a class of 100 students and says, okay, for the final exam, I'm not grading you individually. Everyone is just going to get the class average. What happens? Nobody studies. Why would you? Your own personal effort feels totally meaningless. And if the whole class bombs the test, the blame is spread out among 99 other people. Well, that's the logic of voting. And this brings us right back to Plato's central problem with democracy. It treats unequals as equals. It gives the exact same amount of power, one vote, to the expert who has spent a lifetime studying an issue and to the person who is completely uninformed. The vote of a seasoned economist can be canceled out by someone who's just mad about a football game. So after laying all of this out, all these deep systemic flaws, we're kind of forced to ask a much bigger and frankly more uncomfortable question. For centuries, we've just assumed that democracy is the end goal, the best we can do. But what if it's not? Consider this perspective for a moment. It comes from Mohammed Alabar, the guy behind Dubai's insane development, including the world's tallest building. When people challenge him about the UAE's lack of democracy, his response is pretty blunt. While you are busy with elections and debate, we are busy building. And that line really highlights two fundamentally different ways of thinking about government. Western democracies are obsessed with the process, the debates, the campaigns, the constant elections. But some of these successful non-democratic states are obsessed with outcomes, long-term planning, economic growth, and actually getting things built. For more than 100 years, the global assumption was pretty straightforward. If you were a reformer in a place like Persia way back in 1906, you looked at the most powerful nations in the world. And what did you see? You saw democracies. And so the conclusion seemed obvious. Democracy must be the engine that creates all that power and progress. And of course, the classic defense, the one we all know, comes from Winston Churchill. He basically said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have ever been tried. It's messy, it's flawed, it's irrational, but hey, it's the least bad option we've got. But here's the final question we have to leave you with. Is that still true today? After everything we've seen, voters being swayed by sharks and sports, the power of a photogenic face, and now the rise of these incredibly successful non-democratic countries, is Churchill's old line still good enough? If democracy really is this vulnerable to our own biases and to pure chance, maybe it's time we started to seriously reconsider what the best form of government actually looks like.